Well, good morning, everyone. We're so glad to have you here for this special edition of Brewing Up Business and celebrating LGBTQ plus History Month. This is such a huge month for the LGBTQ plus community. This celebration continues to grow year after year, and I cannot wait to hear from our very special guest, Rodney Wilson, who is the founder of LGBTQ plus History Month. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful conversation with him. Uh, my name is Tammy Wallace. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a co-founder and the president and CEO of the Chamber. I do want to mention with the pronouns, those are important. We want to make sure that we're referencing everyone according to your personal pronouns. So feel free to edit your profile to add those as well. A quick note, we are going to have plenty of networking. If you're joining us on Air Meet, we're going to have plenty of networking in the Chamber Networking Cafe after the program this morning. So stick around, connect with Rodney, our sponsors, our door prize sponsors as well. They've all got tables labeled. And let me just say a huge welcome to those of you that are joining us for the first time, that you are guests. We're so glad to have you with us. Thank you for being here. We have folks also joining us via live stream on Facebook and YouTube. We're thrilled to have you. And of course, next time, join us so you can actually network. We'd love to have you and get to know you more about you and your work or your company, all of the above. Feel free to add your chat information, your contact information in the chat box, and also let us know where you're joining us from. I know we had a lot of registrations from people that are coming to us from different cities and even different states. Well, speaking of LGBTQ plus History Month, the fall edition of the Chamber's digital magazine, Business Intersections, is now out. And I highlight that because the theme of the magazine is celebrating LGBTQ plus History Month. We are highlighting on the cover the Banner Project. This is a remarkable project that captures Houston's history and the people and the events that have led us to this point in our incredible LGBTQ plus community in the city. The Banner Project, they do remarkable work along with through J.D. Doyle and his archives. Amazing work. I want to encourage you to check that out. We're putting the link in the chat. So please, please go and check out their work. And they're continuing to add more banners because we continue to make history each and every year, each and every month, each and every day. So with that, I do want to mention in this magazine, we actually have our sponsor, Let's Talk About Gay Stuff. They are actually highlighted, and we have a feature on celebrating LGBTQ plus History Month. So it is an issue worth checking out on so many levels. And I want to mention, particularly if you're new, this is a milestone year for the Chamber, and we are celebrating our 5-year anniversary this year. We want to thank our amazing inaugural members and corporate partners, our strategic partners that have helped us get to year 5. I often say now that we are just getting started. We have so much work in the years ahead that we are going to be doing on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community, locally, regionally, and even statewide. You can check out our anniversary page, flip through the photos, see the proclamations from the city of Houston and more, celebrating this milestone occasion. And also, I hope this is, if you're a guest, this is not your last event. We'd love to have you again. Check out the Chamber calendar for some upcoming events that we've got. We're going to finish the year strong. And let me just say, we are planning a robust 2022. And certainly while we're in this virtual environment, right now, we're looking to get back in person, and we've been start and stop this year, but we are looking to get back in person and see faces, but also maintaining some virtual connection as well, so people can join us regardless of where you are at geographically. I just want to give a quick shout out to our amazing, we have tremendous corporate partners and members that help us. They support our work and our mission towards economic inclusion. That includes some of our newest members that you see on screen, Vanguard Youth Society, Samantha Smith, and I am so pleased, Commissioner Adrian Garcia, one of our new business level members as well. And we have a host of renewing members that continue to support us. We say happy Chamberversary to the folks you see on screen. We appreciate their continued support. And this is a great time to check out the Chamber. If you have not been involved in the Chamber, whether a business or you're an individual and just want to connect professionally, we are here. We would love to have you join us in our important work. Highlighting on the screen, we've got our corporate partners, and I want to just give a shout out to two, our top tier corporate partners, Fertitta Entertainment and also United Airlines. So with that, we're going to circle through just the rest of our amazing members and go ahead and take us, Maureen, to Thomas. I want to introduce Thomas Lopez. Thomas is he is the CEO and founder of Economy Works, and we're going to have his bio on screen shortly. Yep. So here's what I want to say. I'm not going to read all of Thomas's bio. You all can do that. He is a remarkable person, incredibly accomplished. But what I want to say about Thomas, here's my personal take. Thomas is one of our board members. He is incredibly committed to economic inclusion and the work that we are doing through the Chamber and our foundation. He has come in as one of our board members over the last couple of years and been an advocate, a champion for the work that we're doing. I feel incredibly fortunate to work alongside him every day through the work that we do at the Chamber. And I'm so excited to say thank you to Thomas and Let's Talk About Gay Stuff for sponsoring our event today. We appreciate you all so much. He brought this idea of bringing Rodney in for celebrating LGBTQ History Month, and it was like, yes. So it is such an honor. And Thomas, with that, let me turn it over to you to walk us through the conversation with Rodney. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you for the kind words. I'm very excited to be here, but of course we have to say happy birthday to Tammy. She's celebrating 29, so happy birthday, Tammy. Actually, yes, so happy birthday, and thank you for all the work you do for the Chamber and for our community. Excited to be here. Admittedly, this is a bit of a full circle moment for me, so I'm very excited to talk with Rodney today, because a year ago, Tammy came to me and said, can you wear, as a board, one of our newest board members, can you wear your Let's Talk About Gay Stuff hat, LGBT history hat, and write a blog for the Chamber blog? And I said, sure, happy to write something about LGBT History Month. And so I did, and after a couple of nudges from Tammy, because I was running late, finally got it out before the end of October, and I put it out. Like most of my blog posts, I didn't expect them to get read. I expected maybe a congratulatory note from my mom saying, "I'm so proud of you, son," and that was it. And lo and behold, in March of this year, I get a message on LinkedIn from none other than Rodney Wilson. And if you're a history nerd, which is why I started the Let's Talk About Gay Stuff podcast, it's like Madonna, or maybe that's a dated reference, maybe like Lady Gaga getting into your DMs saying, "Hey, cool blog post. Thank you for sharing my work, or talking about LGBT History Month." So it was a wow moment for me. I was like awestruck, and so then the wheel started turning. It's like, well, how can we explore this a bit more? How can we learn more from Rodney Wilson, the founder of LGBTQ History Month? It's like, why not invite him onto our podcast, which talks about LGBTQ plus history? So we talked to the guys, and we brought him in to celebrate our 100th episode. We thought, what better way to celebrate 100 episodes than to bring the founder of LGBTQ History Month onto our show. So we had him. It was a great conversation that we had. It was interesting. It was one of our co-hosts, Kendall, had this full connection with Rodney because he was watching Rodney on TV when Rodney was coming out, and we'll get into Rodney's coming out story a bit. But it's such a privilege for me to come 1 year later with it under the umbrella of the Chamber to bring on Rodney Wilson to talk about LGBTQ plus History Month. Rodney is an educator. He's from Missouri, and he's the founder of LGBTQ History Month. You can learn more about Rodney He's active on Facebook and Twitter, but there's also a documentary about Rodney, and it's worth watching. You can find it on YouTube too. It's a Taboo Teaching, a profile of Missouri teacher Rodney Wilson. So definitely something you want to watch out for. And if you were born before 1990, a lot of the things, because as I was watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this happening in the national spotlight. So you'll remember some bits of history that maybe you weren't aware of at the time, but were definitely happening again in the national headlines. In 2020, Rodney was named Missouri Trailblazer by the Missouri State Museum. So obviously distinguished, recognized, and Rodney, we're happy to have you here. So thank you. So enough about me, because we're here all to talk about you. We've got a full slate of people here ready to listen to you. So, again, you're the founder of LGBTQ Plus History Month. You're from Missouri. You're a teacher. So many interesting things about you. I definitely want to know about why you started LGBTQ Plus History Month. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Again, growing up in Missouri, this conservative state, you're a teacher. Your coming out story makes national headlines. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Thomas, and thank you, Tammy, for the invitation to be here today. It's a privilege and an honor. I always jokingly tell people I was born the same month and year that Winston Churchill died, and then I make them look it up. And I was born in Missouri, in southeast Missouri, a rural area in the foothills of the Ozark Mountains. My mother and father were very young, just 18 and 20 when I was born, and they did a great job raising me. But in a small town of 2,500 people, with parents who had not gone outside of Washington County in their lifetimes, except perhaps a little day journey here or there was not much information about what it means to be, then we would be thinking lesbian or gay, except that those were odd people or strange people. My father used to say, I don't want a queer within a mile of me. And all of that weighed on me as a young man, because I knew with absolute certainty when I was 8 years old that I was different, that I was not like the other boys. So that goes back to second grade. So I started living with that reality, that recognition that I was different very early on. And then it took decades, actually, from age 8 to age 26 to finally come to the point at which I could tell my mother, who then told my father, that I am gay, and that if they want to be fully included in my life, and if they don't want me to keep secrets from them, they need to know this information. And my mother was very accepting within 24 hours. Took her a little bit of time to adjust. My dad probably took about 6 months to adjust. He would not have ever been able to, speak with any authority about what it means to be gay, nor would he have any understanding of the history of gay Americans or gay people or lesbian, bi, trans, queer in world history. But he loved me, and he eventually grew to accept and understand to the ability he was able to. But it was a long struggle that also involved coming to terms with my then religiosity and my homosexuality, and trying to bring those two worlds together, which can sometimes be terribly difficult because, as you know, some religion is overwhelmingly oppressive. In fact, some religions historically, including even the Christian religion and other religions still on the earth today, sometimes execute gay men and lesbian women. So it was a journey that I took that led me up to the final closet, which was that at my school in suburban St. Louis in 1994, when I was a government and history teacher.
That was a big moment. When you came out, because as I again went through the documentary, I was reminded that your coming out was unique. I mean, we all have a unique coming out story, but you made national headlines with your coming out story.
Yes, it really was the last closet for me. You know, we go through a process of recognition that we have some difference, and then acceptance personally of that difference, and then sharing that difference. And by that point, I had shared my difference with friends and family, but not at work, and certainly not with students. I taught 14 to 18-year-olds from 1990 through 1997. And so it came to dawn on me that if I was going to live a completely authentic and fully integrated life, I needed to also be out in my workplace. It was my fourth year teaching. In Missouri, you're granted tenure at the end of your fifth year. So I was not a tenured teacher, which made it more risky. This was the end of my fourth year, but I was completely and totally impressed and at peace with the reality that I now needed to take that last step, that it was important in education for there to be openly LGBTQ teachers. Students needed to know that. The straight students and the LGBT students both needed that wonderful lesson, in my view, that there are LGBT people everywhere, including in the classroom. And in fact, in my high school at the time, we had about a dozen teachers. We knew each other, teachers who were lesbian and gay. We knew each other, but we were not out to other colleagues, and especially we were not out to students. But on that day in 1994, I decided it was time to tell the full story and the complete truth to my students.
And from there, your world just kind of blew up. I mean, you rocked the school district, the city, the state, and the nation with like, teacher comes out, and you were the first teacher to come out in your high school, and you were on. I can't remember how many different news outlets, but your face was all over the country.
Right. For 1994, 1995, and 96, this was a conversation I was having a lot. I don't recall when the first journalist contacted me from a very widely read and progressive weekly publication in St. Louis called the Riverfront Times. Her name was Jeanette Batts, but at some point she contacted me and I decided to cooperate. The Missouri National Education Association had provided legal assistance, and my attorney, as all attorneys would be, it was good practice, advised me against interaction with media. But I felt it was a good thing, that we needed a light on this subject. It was something that needed to be discussed in St. Louis, in Missouri, and nationally. And I also felt that in the end, it would be less likely that my school district would say goodbye to me if they knew that doing so would be something the public would know about. They couldn't just do it in a back room in the dark somewhere. And I came to really believe it was so fundamentally important that I accomplish what I set out to accomplish, that if I were terminated at the end of that fourth year or at the end of the fifth year and not granted tenure, it would set back the entire coming out movement for teachers who've always been in a particularly precarious situation when it comes to being LGBT and in the classroom. So I felt an enormous responsibility to my students, gay and straight, and to every teacher who was LGBT at the time, because if I had not succeeded, it would have caused a chilling effect, as they put it, on all of those individuals. And imagine what it would have said to the LGBTQ students in my high school if the first teacher to come out and be open and honest was punished. It would have been an enormous setback. The good news is I was granted tenure at the end of the fifth year, and then I continued to teach 2 additional years with largely a return to normalcy.
That's great. I mean, in terms of the impact, I remember our discussion on the podcast where Kendall mentioned that he remembers seeing you as a teenage boy on TV because he was living in Missouri at the time, where you were all over local news. You were on Ricky Lake, you were on Dateline, right? And so you talk about the impact again that you're having. I mean, he said it stirred some emotions of fear because it's like that gay man is on TV all the time talking about being gay. It's like, are they going to look at me that way? You know, when are the eyes going to turn on me? So it was crazy to say, hear him say, he feared you, but at the same time, he respected what you were doing and was watching you closely to see what did happen to that gay teacher who was on TV all the time. So yeah, you definitely had the impact on the community, on the audience you had, and obviously that comes out a lot in the documentary as well, as they talk to former students and colleagues of yours. That's, again, I remember watching in the documentary that story, and I was like, it all just came running back to me. So you bravely stood against kind of all of the pressures against you, and ultimately, like you said, were able to keep your, get tenure and continue teaching and returning to relatively normal. That same year, 1994, was a big year for you because that's when you founded LGBTQ Plus History Month, which at the time was called, I guess, Lesbian and Gay History Month. But why? I mean, why the purpose? Why did we need that month? Why do we need to study history? And why June, or why October as opposed to June?
Lots of great questions there. Really, it all starts in 1926 with Carter Woodson, who founded Negro History Week in February, because that's when Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass were born. And he believed that the history of Black Americans had been ignored and overlooked, and he was right. He also believed that history is empowering, that history provides legitimacy to a people and to a person individually. And he believed that history could be used as a platform from which a community grows. They look back on what happened prior, they learn the lessons from it, and then they take that with them into the future. So when Carter Woodson founded Negro History Week, which became Black History Month in 1970, by the way, he was the second African-American to get a PhD at Harvard, and he was the son of formerly enslaved people. So he's an incredible man. He founded Black History Month as it became. And then we had also in the 1970s, Hispanic Heritage Week, which became Hispanic History Month. We had Women's History Week, became Women's History Month, Asian Pacific Islander in 1990. So I was participating in many of these as a teacher, especially Black History Month in February and Women's History Month in March. And I also had a textbook, an American history textbook of 800 pages that did not provide any information about even the existence of LGBTQ people. There was no Stonewall in my textbook. Bayard Rustin was not a mentor of Martin Luther King in my textbook. Harvey Milk was not in my textbook. There was nothing. The Lavender Scare in the 1950s was not in my textbook. The expulsion of LGBTQ people from the military, none of that was there. So I came to believe, one, of course, those stories should be there too, along with all the other stories, and that it would be helpful to have an event like the one Carter Woodson started in 1926. So I looked at the calendar. I found those months that were already completely taken, and those were excluded. Of course, the month had to be in the academic year, so it needed to be sometime from August 1 to May 31. And it's really hard to do anything in August, your first month back. It's really hard to do anything in May, your last month there. So October seemed a natural place. In addition, in 1979, the first Lesbian and Gay March on Washington, 1987, the second Lesbian and Gay March on Washington on October 11th, by the way, which is where we get National Coming Out Day in 1988. Those were in October. So it just seemed to be the right place to put it. So I wrote up a proposal, 2 pages. My wonderful friend from college, John Du Bois, who was then a women's studies major at The Ohio State University, read through my proposal. She said, hey, I'll help you with this. We sent it out to everyone via postal service, of course. We didn't have email or anything like that in 1994, at least I didn't. And eventually, rather quickly actually, a lot of LGBT organizations that existed at the time endorsed the concept, said we like the idea, we can maybe provide a little help, or we like the idea a lot, we've endorsed it on our board unanimously, but we can't provide any support. And then it just began rolling from there. We had two really incredible organizers, Kevin Booyer and Kevin Jennings, come on board our beginning coordinating committee. And we did everything we could to make that October 1994 the best, then called, as you put it, Lesbian and Gay History Month. And in 1995, Lesbian, Gay, and Bisexual History Month, now LGBTQ plus History Month. So it started in 94. This is the 28th annual. And the purpose is to shine a spotlight and create an intentional moment on the calendar for us to consciously think about the history of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people in the United States and around the world for all time, and put a spotlight on various stories and various individuals and various events, which is what your Let's Talk About Gay Stuff does all the time. I love your social media feed because I think it's important. I think it's empowering. And I think it's the right thing to do if we're going to have a full integrated grasp of the history of all human beings in this country and around the world.
Yeah, I mean, again, the story in terms of how you did it, how you pulled it off. I mean, without a viral tweet or a viral YouTube video or some TikTok dance, like you did it writing campaign letters essentially to influencers at the time, right, and being able to make stuff happen. And you know, your ability and the team's ability to kind of pull that off is quite remarkable. And again, a celebration of our community, of all the events that lead up to or that led up to kind of where we are today, the privileges that we have. I mean, backstage, you and Tammy were talking about how, you know, as activists, as advocates for our community and our rights, never did you imagine that in your lifetime that marriage equality was going to be something that was achieved. And I benefit from the work that you guys did and the work that, you know, all the other folks in the community did before us. And we should honor that. We should remember that. We should remember, I mean, yes, you know, when we talk about this on our podcast often, it's like, yes, we have the Chers and the Madonnas that are icons, but really it's you, Rodney, who are the icons of our community, who helped ensure that we remember our history, and not just our unique history as a community, but our history as Americans, right? I mean, you mentioned all those events like Stonewall and the freedom marches that we had, and the Bayard Rustins of the world, though, that are crucial. I mean, they were part of not just LGBTQ plus history, but they were part of the big fight for civil rights, right? And so, and you know, I always use Alan Turing as an example, not an American, but a Brit, to help decode the, you know, enigma for, you know, so we could win World War II, right? And so these are things that we never talk about. And that poor man died by suicide. He was castrated because he was homosexual, right? So all these sorts of things that happened in these trailblazers, not just in our community, but in American history, world history, that I mean, this month helps us remember those people, those trailblazers. So thank you for initiating this movement, if you will. So a lot has happened, though. I mean, since 1994, since, you know, we're the 28th anniversary of celebrating LGBTQ plus History Month. But you know, when you were starting this, AIDS was kind of in a full-blown crisis. We've got that to a manageable state now. It's not a death sentence anymore. We couldn't, and we talked about same-sex marriage. I mean, we were actually passing a law, the collective we were passing a law to ban same-sex marriage across the U.S. We couldn't serve openly in the military. Now we can. Gay men couldn't legally have sex. Now we can. And so with all these advancements, you know, we've got the Supreme Court ruling in 2020, made sure that, you know, we couldn't get fired for how we identify or sexual orientation. Why do we still need LGBTQ plus History Month? I mean, haven't we achieved what you were setting out to do potentially in 1994?
Not yet. And you know that, of course. Thank you for putting that in context, because you're right. The early 1990s, we were dealing with the Defense of Marriage Act. We were dealing with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. You had the murder of Alan Schindler in Yokohama, Japan. People should look him up if they don't recall the name. So we had 40,000 Americans dying every year in 1994 and 1995. That was the peak from AIDS complications. So that was the context, yes, in which this celebration started. And we've made a lot of progress. But just this year, in fact, last month, September, here in Missouri, we had 2 events occur that really surprised me, because I thought we had conversation about these 2 matters and we had come to some consensus, but obviously we had not. In the Missouri State Museum, which is on the first floor of the Missouri Capitol in Jefferson City, right there on the Missouri River, we had a display, a 12-panel display of the history of the LGBT rights movement in Kansas City. It's great. It's online. You can look at it. You can read every one of these words that were part of these panels. And a few conservative legislators and their aides were outraged, and they began a social media campaign against it. And in 4 days, it was removed. It was supposed to be up for 4 months. It was removed in 4 days. And this was absolutely clearly, if you look at their social media feeds, a religious war against this history of LGBTQ people in Kansas City. That happened in September. Also in September, we had a young teacher just out of teacher training school who was born in 1998. So 4 years after I went through my experiences is when he was born. And he just finished his training to be a teacher. He started teaching way down in Southwest Missouri in a very small town, but a town in which he had grown up. So a town that knew him. And he put a pride flag up in his classroom, among many other things. A pride flag and a "Everyone is welcome here" sign. He was asked to take it down. He was asked to sign a piece of paper that he would not discuss sexuality or sexual orientation in his classroom. He signed it. He agreed that he would resign in a month. As a result, he just couldn't continue to teach under those circumstances. They replaced him the next day and he was gone. So here in Missouri, last month, those 2 events involving a gay teacher and involving LGBTQ history, the pride flag. So it sort of woke me up to the reality that while we have made a lot of progress for which we are all happy, we have to be vigilant, because there are many cases in history in which progress happens and then there's a backlash. Now, hopefully the backlash will be minimal and short-lived, but one never knows. So we have to be vigilant. We always have to keep an eye on it. We have to continue to advocate. We have to continue to be engaged with what's happening in the news and with various people who are around us and institutions, because we could backslide and we definitely don't want to.
So true. And those stories are heartbreaking, because like you said, we thought we got past all of this, and the fact that it's happening again. I mean, we hear it in Texas all the time. There's no shortage of ambitious legislative members that are trying to pass anti-LGBTQ laws. So to your point, I mean, we have to remain vigilant. And this month helps us remember, like, this was the rights that we have today were hard fought, right? And it is, we can't take them for granted. And I always maintain they're subject of a Supreme Court ruling, right? A lot of times marriage equality, our ability to have sex, like those are based on a Supreme Court ruling. Nothing has passed, right? We don't have the Equality Act in place, which is something we would ideally get to in short time, right? So that we don't have to have these issues at the local and state level. Well, Rodney, I could talk to you for days. When you were nice enough to let us do that in the podcast. So if you want more information on Rodney, he's got all sorts of information about him. Though Rodney is very generous with his time, and I appreciate you being generous with your time today and talking to us about yourself and about how you founded LGBTQ+ History Month. There are so many great writings you've contributed, many, especially this time of year, about why LGBTQ History Month is important. So I would encourage anyone who's following along today, who's watching, to look up Rodney. He is available, accessible, again, surprisingly accessible, considering how, to me, what a significant role in history that you have. But you are very accessible on social media, whether that's Twitter or Facebook, and I know you're also on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So you can find Rodney online, and again, don't forget to check out the documentary about him, because it encapsulates his story very nicely, and it's, we got all the makings of a Hollywood film, because it is very moving. And so again, that's Taboo Teaching: A Profile of Missouri Teacher Rodney Wilson. Rodney, I'm excited to see the biopic of you one day, because your story is very compelling. So I appreciate your time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, Rodney, thank you so much. This has been an incredible conversation. Thomas, thank you for leading us through this. What I was struck about, and I hope people are listening, Rodney, you've paved a way, and you've created this path so we can really capture our history, both locally and on a national level. But yet you touched on something that just makes my heart hurt so much to think about. That as young people coming through K through 12, that they don't get to see the most important historical moments and people that have influenced our community and have done so many great things, such as yourself, to pave a way. It just reminds me again that we have so much work to do, because every young person going to school deserves to see people that look like them, people that they can look up to, that they can admire, that they can say, I'm proud to be who I am, and connect with people that are certainly, mirroring them in terms of the LGBTQ plus community. I'm just, thank you, Rodney. This is incredible. Thomas, thank you for bringing Rodney and creating the connection here. And Rodney, I want you to know our welcome mat is always open for you. You are always welcome at the chamber in our great city. We will do anything we can to help you, to support you, and to continue to push your work forward. So thank you again. All right, with that, I'm going to try to gather myself here for a moment. I do want to, we have a couple of great door prizes for those joining us, quote, virtually / in person. And I want to give a huge shout out to our door prize sponsors: Listen Works, Let's Talk About Gay Stuff, Outsmart Magazine, and Bake Buns. And here's what I want to say. I don't usually talk about our door prizes like this, but I want to tell you, our door prizes are not just door prizes. These companies, these organizations that are giving us the door prizes, to say thank you to some of you joining us today, they are members. We want to support them. So we routinely reach out to say and collaborate on door prizes. So I want to thank these three businesses for supporting us today. And we're going to give our first door prize is going to be a 4th page ad in Outsmart Magazine. This is for non-current advertisers only. This is fantastic. This is a value of $500. And this is, I would say it's, it might be $500 if you paid for it, but the value that you get by advertising in Outsmart Magazine, a 28-year publication, LGBTQ publication in the region, phenomenal. So with that, Maureen, let me keep me honest here. Here we go. Okay, we've got our first door prize question. Here we go. And so we're going to ask everybody to respond in the chat and make sure the first person to respond is going to be the winner. What year was LGBTQ History Month founded? All right, first person to respond. Have we stumped everyone? Here we go. Lana got it. 1994. Good job, Lana. All right. So Lana, we'll be following up with you on that. Thank you for that. And then our next door prize from Baked Bones. This is a fantastic dog treat bundle. I'm going to tell you, when Chris emailed us about this, I honestly thought I would really like that. It sounded so good. This is what the Baked Bones guys do. You have to check them out. This is value, tremendous value at $100. And here's your trivia question. Rodney Wilson became the first openly gay public school teacher in which state? Give us an answer in the chat here. And Maureen, if I'm missing any chats, you be sure to put that up there. So Rodney became the first openly gay public school teacher in which state?
I believe Jeffrey had responded. Yeah, there's multiple people in the chat here. Everyone responded. Okay. Jeffrey, so.
I think what's happening, my scroll's not working. So, okay, we've got, is it Jeffrey, you said?
Yes.
All right, Jeffrey, congratulations. Wonderful. And I know Jeffrey has puppers, so this is perfect. It is Missouri. Wonderful. Thank you again to our door prize sponsors, and thank you for being a part of the chamber and all your support to our door prize winners. Thank you. Again, Maureen or Christy will follow up with you on those door prizes. Let me wrap it up for this morning, because I know we've got some great networking. We're going to leave the Chamber Networking Cafe open until 9:30. I do want to mention a couple of things before we wrap up here. Just again, thanking not only, Thomas and Let's Talk About Gay Stuff for sponsoring, but Rodney, thank you again for helping us, not only being part of the program today, but helping us celebrate this most important month, LGBTQ plus History Month. Both Rodney will be in the Chamber Networking Cafe. We've got a table labeled with him. Please stop by. Feel free to ask him questions. He would love to chat with you and say hello. Thomas will be there as well if you have questions about the podcast. Again, we're going to leave the Networking Cafe open until 9:30. And I want to just say, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Stay up to date on, we got a lot going on at the Chamber. As I said, a lot to finish out the year. So follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, and I hope you enjoyed the program today. Thank you again for being here. Continue to network and check out, say hello to Rodney. Wishing everyone a wonderful LGBTQ plus History Month and a fantastic Wednesday. Thank you so much. All right.